Today I've been thinking a lot about trying new things and how somewhere along the way for the last few years, at least for me, it got a lot scarier than it used to be. Um, I feel like I'm someone who's always had a healthy aversion to risk, I would say. But in the last 5, 6 years since the pandemic and since everything has just seemed so much more chaotic in the world, like everything's on fire all the time. Um, I realized that I've kind of internalized that as like the world is a big, scary place and I have to stay home more. I need to be home more. Now, part of that was due to burnout. I'm not gonna lie, I burned out pretty hard a couple of years ago. But part of it is also just this feeling of closing down, of closing in, of going inward, of things are scary and so it's time to hunker down. But the reality of that just isn't necessarily true. I can't speak for everyone, but like in our day to day, there's so many more opportunities to explore new things and try new things and not let fear get in the way of that. And these don't have to be big, scary things. This is not a big lecture for like how to confront your fears about XYZ. No, it's more of me reflecting on how I got into this lifestyle in the first place. And that was by trying smaller things and working my way up to the bigger thing, like moving out of the US and leaving for good. And I booked a plane ticket today, and it's one of those things just like, oh yeah, I gotta hurry up and book my plane ticket before work, and then I'll deal with, everything else after someday, tomorrow, the next day, whatever. I know where I'm going. I have a ticket from here to the next place, but I'll deal with booking the Airbnb and figuring out exactly where I'm staying and then figuring out my flight onward from there. I'll feel all that in a second, or I'll figure that out in the future. And it's just, who am I? I look at my younger self and I'm like, she'd have been like, how are you not flipping out, stressing out, needing to have everything planned, everything coordinated? But it's just leaning into a feeling of peace and learning how to let things flow, but also reminding myself of how I got here. And how I got here was not, going from 10 years ago to now. It was through little practical everyday things that I did to strengthen my confidence, to strengthen my trust in myself, to strengthen my comfort with new and, interesting things. And one of the concrete ways that I realized that I did this was by something that I used to say to myself, which was, when was the last time that you did something for the first time? Because the hideous thing about becoming adults is that a lot of times we become really boring. And I think it's because society wants us to be boring, want us, trapped in that rat race, that wheel spinning. But, our peers and society and our families do it to us too. They kind of want us to be contained and constrained in a little box. And there are certain things that you're allowed to do and certain things you're not allowed to do. And certain things, it's just like all of this, you need to be serious and you need to be an adult and you need to do all these things. And I was guilty of that, for so many years. I still am in some ways. I definitely am in some ways. But lately, in the past year or two, since turning 40 and thinking about what does that even mean, which nothing, it's literally just you've been alive for this long. But it's crazy to me how much my perspective has changed recently in that I look at myself and other people as just big kids. Like, we're not grown-ups, we're just big kids. I think grown-up adulthood really probably starts at maybe like 60. I don't even know, because it's definitely not in the 40s. I don't feel it yet. But I feel like we're big kids, and there's still so many things that we used to love to do as kids that we let ourselves be pulled away from by what other people told us, when in reality we should be doing those things still to an extent. The things that we enjoyed, the hobbies that we had, the things that we wanted to be when we grew up, there's still, incorporating those into our lives. Wouldn't that be better? I'm not saying you have to quit your job right now and become a firefighter tomorrow. I'm just saying that doing something adjacent or something that lights up that same place in your brain would probably be a good thing for all of us. But circling back around to when you do things, when did you do something for the last time? That's something I used to tell myself, because when you do something for the first time, it's just exciting. It's new. It's interesting. I mean, it's frustrating sometimes too if you're not getting the hang of it. But there are so many things out there in this world, and somewhere along the way we got caught up in the idea that we had to be like super good at all of them. And it's like, no, you can go and take a pottery class. You can go to a coffee tasting. You can go to a whiskey tasting. Personally, my favorite. But you can go do new things. And when I used to think about this is back when I lived in Vegas. Actually, it was before then, but that was when I remember a lot, because I would adventure out and just drive all around Vegas and go to the national parks outside of Vegas, and I spent loads of time at Lake Mead. I would just jump in my car and go somewhere I hadn't been just to see what was there. And I remember this specifically because at that time I met several people who were like born and raised, like lived in, Henderson, like had grown up in right in Vegas. And what I would hear over and over from people was, wow, you've been to more places than I have, and I've lived here my whole life. And I think we tend to make that mistake, but we don't have to. There are adventures on each of our doorsteps, whether it be in physically moving and going somewhere new, or opening up a computer and learning something new. Being like, okay, this thing that I've been wanting to do forever, let me just watch a course on it and let me try it. Let me fiddle with it. Just try something with it. And I think this really, like, it lights us up. It invigorates us if we allow new things into our lives, no matter how small. And I think that's the key thing, no matter how small. I'm living here in Ecuador, and I just rode the bus the other day for the first time. Like by myself. Like I'd caught it before with friends, but I don't know. There's just something about catching a bus in another country to me that is excruciatingly anxiety producing the first time, and then I'm fine. But it's like not knowing how to do it the first time. Do I have to have exact change? Whatever. So anyway, I learned how to catch the bus. But the other day, I was coming out of my friend's place, and it was about to go by, and I like flagged it down in the middle of the street like a local, like just hey, because here in Ecuador, it's not like there's suggested bus stops, but also just kind of wave at the bus and it will usually stop. So where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is that just running out of the gate and flagging down the bus and jumping on right as it happened to be going by was such an exhilarating feeling. And we're talking about a 35-cent fare for about 15 minutes down the mountainside. Like, it wasn't a big adventure, but it was a big feeling of, oh, I did something new. Today marks the first day that I like flagged down a bus in Ecuador and took it by myself. And I've been living here like on and off for like years. So I don't know. I don't know why it's taking me so long. But anyway, again, before I get too rambly, just we have to do little things and big things, but just different things. And asking yourself that question, when was the last time you did something for the first time? And letting that guide you can be super, super, super helpful. I remember certain places that I was living in, I just felt really stuck, and I felt like there was nothing around me that was interesting or inspiring. But I used to go for a walk each day. And after I started letting that play in my head, I was like, I'm not going for the same loop that I always do. I'm going to go down this loop instead, and I'm going to put something together here. Those tiny actions, because what it's doing is like, is it groundbreaking to walk a different way? No. But it's groundbreaking to hold the thought in your head of like, why am I walking a different way? Because I'm doing something new. Because I haven't walked here before. Because I want to add a check to my list of, today, I did something new for the first time. So, yeah, it's just a really powerful little idea that can get the wheel turning until, who knows, maybe like me, you'll end up about 10 years later looking back and remembering, how powerful that phrase has been throughout my life and how much it has helped me to accomplish in my life.